Hi folks, Dave with dbstechtalk, and today we're going to talk about the ThieAudio Legacy 3. I want to thank the YouTube subscriber and Discord friend who sent these over for review. Thank you very much. You greatly appreciate it, and you rock. Alright, so the Legacy 3 by ThieAudio comes in this very simple, straightforward box, and it says, musical liberation awaits. And then underneath, you get a carrying case. That literally is all that you get. That's quite the unboxing experience. Love it. Straight, simple, and straight to the point. All right, so the carrying case is a little bit on the large side. It's not the smallest thing in the world, but it fits in a bag and it protects. Does a very good job. So on the inside, you get a bag of tips. These things are not my favorite. You can just toss them to the side. You also get a SIM ejection tool, a dip switch tool, and that's very handy. You also get a cable, which I do not have any issues with the cable quality at all. Does have, well, I take that back, has one little thing that I don't care for too much. Has this little tacky, plasticky feel to it, but other than that, it's nice and light. Has good casing, 3.5, and then it goes to 2-pin, which are marked blue and red for left and right. And then your IEMs themselves. And we'll take them out of the bag here so you can see them up close. This is probably my favorite choice of colors that the L3 comes in. You can get it in the watch face and a couple other designs. Don't really care for it. I really like the blue one. You can see the driver inside there, 10mm and 2BA. On the back side here, you have the dip switches. It's got a decent sized nozzle. It is a little bit hard to fit some third-party tips on. Some of them don't like to stay on. They will slip off. So you have to kind of play around with that a little bit. But other than that, I do not have a problem with the fit and finish of the L3. For $130, I think this is pretty much spot on for the price. Looks good, feels good in the ears. They have a 10mm dynamic driver, and then they have 2BA drivers. The mids and treble are covered by the BA, bass is covered by the dynamic. They have 8.6 to 9.5 ohms of impedance, very strange, and 108 sensitivity, so they're fairly easy to drive. Did not have any problems driving them off of a phone, off of dongles, off of DAPs, or even off of desktops. But with the more powerful desktops, you do get a lot of hiss, so do be aware of that. You will have to use an IE match or something like that. All right, so the dip switches, and they're very easy. You just get that little tool and you can flick the numbers up or down. And so let's go through these really quickly. When both of them are up, they sounded to me very forward and had a small stage. I did not care for that. It was very intense, brought everything all right into the ears, and it was just too much. When number 1 and number 2 were both down, they sounded recessed in the mids, and in the treble was very muted, and they were extremely bassy, way too thick a bass, and they just, nah. Maybe for a bass head, I didn't care for that at all. And then when number 1 was up and number 2 was down, I found that the bass emphasis was nice. It had good texture to it. But the mids and the treble were a little stuffy. They lacked air. They sounded a little closed in, and the soundstage was a little small. It wasn't an awful sound, but I didn't really care for it. And then when my preferred sound was with the number 1 was up and number 2 was down. I'm sorry, number 1 was down and number 2 was up. There we go. Number 1 down, number 2 up. you get an overall smoothness, a little bit wider of a soundstage, and the separation was there, air was open, and the bass kind of was in more line, and you got a little bit more detail and refinement. But overall, once I got the setting correct, I just kind of stuck with it. I didn't really swap the sound too much. One thing that I did have to do was get the final E tips out, and I found that the tip that worked the best for me was the extremely small tip and a little bit longer. And I found that that goes on the tip nozzle of the L3 very easily, but it inserted nicely and gave me a good solid seal. And I found that the L3 sounded better with a deep insertion and a strong seal. They do a good job of isolating outside noises once you have the proper seal, but it's not the best at outside noise isolation, but it did a good job. About 66% or so of outside noises were blocked. So I was content, but you have to have that deep insertion. So if you don't like deep insertion, the L3 might not be for you. Okay, so overall the sound signature, once you get everything tuned in, toned in, and played around with, and you got your tip choice made, and you have your fit and your seal all situated, I found that the Legacy 3 was kind of like the good, the bad, and the ugly. And unfortunately, the bad and the ugly won. So let's go through it real quick. Let's start with the good. The good. I really enjoy the soundstage. I think the soundstage on the L3 is fantastic. It's nice and wide. And it's kind of like you're sitting on the front row of the balcony and you're looking down onto the stage. And you have this nice overview and you get good layering and depth and isolation of instruments and separation. You can kind of feel everything and image where it's placed. It's a very nicely sounding soundstage and it does a really good job. But unfortunately, the sounds that are coming from it aren't so good. The bad are the mids and the treble. It's just like, it's just dull and muted. It's lifeless. It lacks air at times. It just has lackluster detail retrieval and resolution. They just don't have a real energy about them. The tone and the timbre are kind of metallic sounding, and at times it sounds real stuffy, and it's just kind of hit or miss with what songs you're listening to, and it's just yeah, it's just like, where's the life, where's the energy, where's the consistency? It just lacked it. It just didn't really move me to enjoyment. It was kind of more of like, we're listening to music. Oh, isn't it bad? It's not doing anything fantastically great, but it's not like offensive, but it's not and the ugly the ugly is the bass, and it doesn't matter what dip switch you have. In fact, if you do the dip switches, it actually gets worse in my opinion. And it's the bass, no matter what setting you have it on, is muddy. It's thick and it just lacks refinement. You just don't have a whole lot of details and a lot of clarity there, and it's very one note sounding. It's just everything sounds the same. Everything kind of muddles together, and it's just kind of the bass is not it for me. I don't like the bass at all. All right, so some closing tips and notes about the Legacy 3. The final audio E-type tip is the best that I found. Fits the best, inserts the best, isolates the best, brings out the best that you can from the L3. I don't like to recommend third-party tips because it's an extra expense, but on these, if you can get the final audio E tip, I highly recommend it. The deep insertion helps, and I can kind of see why they're pushing to custom IEMs for these. I can understand that because deep insertion and proper fit and seal is important with a custom, and so that kind of makes sense that these are a universal based off of the settings that a custom would be for. And so I don't recommend getting the custom version of the L3 because I don't like the sound of the universal, and I don't think that there would be enough of an improvement with the custom. But maybe if you want at least that first initial impression of what a custom would be like, this might be a baby step in that direction. But I wouldn't take that chance just because it's not worth it, the $70, $60, $70 extra expense that it is to do the custom version. To me, no matter what the source was, and I used several, I used different dongles. I used the Razer DAC amp, and I used the X-Duo Link, and the access port light from ADV, and also I used the $189 Next Drive Spectra X. And all of them kind of gave the same impression. Now, the Spectra X sounded the best. The X-Duo Link was next. And then the Razer, and then the access port light. The access port light was way too warm and thick. The Razer was a little sheeny and shimmery and lacked refinement in the details. And then the X-Duo was the best sounding, had good clarity and a pleasant sound, but as I said, it just kind of lacked energy. And then the Spectra did better, gave you better detail retrieval and smoothness and just overall presentation. But who's going to use a $189 DAC amp dongle with a $129 IEM? Probably not too many people, so I don't really recommend that. But if you have one laying around and you have an L3, I'm gonna give it a try. So anyways, overall, I just found that the L3 lacks love and enjoyment. It just misses the musicality, and it just doesn't have anything really worth just talking about. It's just an IEM. It's just a $130 IEM that is, it's there. Do I recommend something over it? Yes, absolutely. I recommend that you get the Moondrop Starfields. I find that these are better. And in fact, I find that the Moondrop Starfield, when compared to the L3, are breathy, airy, full of life, with better weather. Let me spit that out. I find that the Moondrop Starfield is breathier, airier, full of life, with better detail retrieval and resolution. I find that the Starfield is the more pleasant to listen to, and I recommend that if you're going to spend that kind of money, just get the Moondrop Starfields instead. This has been Dave with DBS Tech Talk. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on the screen is a notification and subscription links. If you haven't already, please check those off. Check out the links down below for playlists that were used, gear that was used to review this, recommendations, all kinds of good stuff down there. And then also, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks, and have yourself a great day.